The grand chamber of the Galactic Council glimmered like a sea of stars. Countless alien species filled the hall, their strange shapes and colors creating a living mosaic of the galaxy's diversity. Some floated above the ground in shimmering energy cocoons. Others stood tall with shining armor, while a few slithered or crawled on sleek metallic floors. The air buzzed with tension. The war between humans and the Vayari Empire had reached a dangerous point, and today's meeting could decide the fate of billions. At the very center of the vast chamber stood a round platform, glowing softly with blue light. This was the high podium, a sacred place where truths were revealed and decisions were made. Above it hovered a massive holographic screen, used to share evidence with every species present. The council's presiding voice, a towering alien with 6 golden eyes and a deep, rumbling tone, began the session. Representatives of the galaxy, it declared, today we meet to discuss the escalating conflict between the humans of Terra and the Vayari Empire. Countless worlds burn. Countless lives are lost. We must seek understanding before total war consumes us all. Murmurs rose through the crowd. The humans stood together on one side of the chamber, led by Admiral Hayes, a stern gray-haired man with sharp eyes and a military uniform decorated with medals. Beside him were diplomats, their expressions tense and wary. Opposite them stood the Vayari delegation. Their leader, Kale, was tall and imposing, his emerald scales gleaming under the chamber's lights. His slit-pupilled eyes swept the room like twin blades. For centuries, the Vayari had ruled vast regions of the galaxy. To them, humans were newcomers, wild, unpredictable, and dangerous. To humans, the Vayari were tyrants who sought to enslave or destroy them. Hatred ran deep on both sides. As the council began its discussion, accusations flew back and forth. Your fleets attacked an unarmed colony. Admiral Hayes shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. Lies. Kale hissed, his voice sharp and cold. It was your people who trespassed into our space first. The presiding voice raised a clawed hand, demanding silence. Enough. We will view the evidence. The lights dimmed. The massive holographic screen flickered to life. At first, images of battle appeared, burning cities, destroyed starships, and desperate refugees fleeing war-torn planets. The room filled with uneasy whispers. This was nothing new. The galaxy had seen such horrors before. Then the footage shifted. A new image appeared, a quiet, dimly lit room. 2 figures stood close together. One was unmistakably human, a man with strong features and weary eyes. The other was a Vayari female, her slender form draped in ceremonial armor, scales shimmering softly in the light. The chamber went silent. The man reached out, his hand trembling. The Vayari female stepped closer, her gaze soft, almost vulnerable. Slowly, carefully, they embraced. And then, they kissed. Gasps erupted from every corner of the chamber. Several council members shouted in their native tongues, their voices overlapping in a chaotic storm of disbelief. Admiral Hayes froze, his face pale with shock and fury. Impossible, he muttered. That can't be real. Kale's eyes blazed with rage. This is a disgrace, he roared, a betrayal of our people. The footage continued to play, showing the 2 figures, human and Vayari, holding each other with desperate passion, as if the universe itself were against them. The presiding voice's deep rumble shook the chamber. This is an abomination, it declared. Chaos exploded. Representatives shouted over one another. Some demanded the immediate execution of the individuals in the recording. Others argued that the footage must be fake, a trick to destabilize the negotiations. Admiral Hayes slammed his fist against the railing. Who is this man? He demanded, his voice trembling with fury. Tell me his name. Kale hissed, his tail lashing in anger. And who is the traitor among my people? Show me the face of this dishonor. The hologram zoomed in, revealing the human's face clearly for the first time. Admiral Hayes' eyes widened in disbelief. Captain Alex Carter, he breathed. Whispers surged through the human delegation. Captain Carter was a celebrated war hero, known for his daring missions and unbreakable loyalty to Earth's defense forces. To see him like this, entangled with the enemy, was unthinkable. On the other side of the chamber, Kale stared at the Veyari female's face, his expression twisted with rage and sorrow. "Commander Lyra Veylan," he snarled. "My own commander." The room grew louder, each faction calling for blood. The presiding voice struck the podium with a heavy staff, demanding silence. "This matter cannot be ignored," it declared. "The relationship between these two individuals threatens the fragile balance of our galaxy. Their actions may have already changed the course of this war." Admiral Hayes pointed a shaking finger at Kale. "Your commander seduced one of our finest soldiers. This is an act of war." Kale shot back with equal fury. "No, your human corrupted her. He poisoned her mind." As the shouting continued, the camera focused on the hologram one last time. Alex and Lyra clung to each other, unaware that their love had just been exposed to the entire galaxy. The presiding voice spoke again, lower this time, but filled with menace. "Find them," it said. "Bring them here to face judgment." The lights blazed back to full brightness, revealing the faces of the council members, angry, fearful, divided. Somewhere, far from the council chamber, two lovers were on the run, unaware that their secret had ignited a storm that could tear the galaxy apart. The galaxy had always been a place of fragile alliances and uneasy peace, but the arrival of humans had changed everything. For centuries, the Veyari Empire had ruled vast territories across the stars. They were a proud and ancient species, their technology unmatched, their military feared by all. Other alien races either bent the knee to their rule or stayed far away, unwilling to challenge their dominance. The Galactic Council existed as a neutral body, mediating disputes and keeping balance between empires. But when humanity discovered faster-than-light travel, the balance shattered. Humans were different. Unlike most species, they spread rapidly, colonizing new worlds with unmatched speed and determination. Their curiosity knew no limits. Their ability to adapt to any environment shocked the older civilizations. To the Veyari, this rapid expansion was a direct threat. At first, there had been cautious diplomacy. Human ambassadors met with the Veyari leaders. Treaties were discussed, trade agreements considered. But beneath the polite words, fear and suspicion grew. Humans saw the Veyari as tyrants trying to control them. The Veyari saw humans as a wild, unpredictable species that needed to be contained. Then came the incident at Ardent Prime. A human colony ship entered a star system claimed by the Veyari. According to human records, it was an accident. Faulty navigation systems sent the ship off course. But the Veyari believed it was a deliberate act of aggression. In a single brutal strike, they destroyed the colony ship, killing thousands of civilians. Humanity was outraged. The Earth Defense Fleet was mobilized, and war officially began. Years passed. Battles raged across dozens of worlds. The humans fought with raw determination and surprising cleverness, often using guerrilla tactics that the Veyari considered dishonorable. The Veyari, in turn, unleashed the full might of their empire, crushing human forces whenever they could. Worlds were burned. Space stations were shattered into drifting debris fields. Entire species who had once stayed neutral were dragged into the conflict, forced to choose sides. The Galactic Council tried to intervene. They sent mediators, peace envoys, and ultimatums. But both humans and Veyari refused to back down. Too much blood had been spilled, too many lives lost. Amid this endless war, heroes and legends were born. Among the humans, one name rose above the rest: Captain Alex Carter. Alex was a starship pilot known for his daring raids and impossible escapes. Many said he was reckless, even foolish, but his results spoke for themselves. Entire fleets had been saved because of his quick thinking and refusal to give up. Soldiers whispered his name like a battle cry. But beneath the glory, Alex carried a heavy burden. His older brother, Daniel, had been killed in one of the earliest battles of the war. Alex had watched helplessly as Daniel's ship was torn apart by Veyari fire. Since that day, Alex's hatred for the enemy burned like a star in his chest. To him, the Vayari weren't just an enemy. They were monsters. On the other side of the war, among the Vayari, there was Commander Lyra Valan. Lyra was a rising star in the Vayari military. Calm, intelligent, and ruthlessly efficient. She had never lost a major battle. Her strategies were studied by officers across the empire. She was respected by her soldiers and feared by her enemies. But Lyra was not like most of her people. She had always been curious about the galaxy beyond the empire's borders. She studied alien cultures, read their histories, and secretly admired the creativity of other species, even humans. But she kept these thoughts hidden, knowing that such ideas would be seen as weakness or even treason. To Lyra, the humans were dangerous, yes, but also fascinating. They were unpredictable, passionate, and strangely alive in a way her own people were not. As the war dragged on, the conflict began to reach a breaking point. The Vayari prepared for a final offensive, one that could wipe out humanity's remaining strongholds in a single strike. The humans, desperate to survive, planned a bold counterattack that would take them deep into enemy territory. The Galactic Council watched helplessly as both sides marched toward mutual destruction. Behind closed doors, some council members whispered that the war would not end until something truly shocking happened, something that would force both sides to see each other not as enemies, but as living beings. Far away, Captain Alex Carter prepared for his next mission. He stood on the bridge of his small but powerful strike ship, staring out at the stars. Around him, his crew worked in tense silence, checking weapon systems and navigation routes. They knew the odds were against them. Admiral Hayes appeared on the holoscreen, his expression grim. "Captain Carter," he said, "your mission is vital. We've detected enemy fleet movements near a neutral star system. If the Vayari sees it, they'll have a direct path to Earth. You are to intercept and gather intelligence. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." Alex saluted sharply. "Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down." But as the transmission ended, Alex clenched his fists. He knew there was no such thing as non-engagement in this war. If the Vayari were there, blood would be spilled. Somewhere out there, Vayari ships were already moving, and on one of them, Commander Lyra Valan prepared her own forces, unaware that her path and Alex's were about to collide. Neither of them knew it yet, but their meeting would change the fate of the galaxy and ignite a scandal that would shake the Galactic Council to its very core. The void of space stretched endlessly, dark and cold, lit only by distant stars and the silent glow of drifting asteroids. A neutral star system lay ahead, its pale sun casting weak light over 2 barren planets and a scattering of moons. This system was unclaimed by any empire, a quiet place meant to serve as a buffer between rival powers. But tonight, there would be no peace here. Hidden among the asteroid field, Captain Alex Carter's strike ship, the Resolute, crept forward under full stealth mode. Inside the cramped bridge, the atmosphere was tense. The hum of engines was the only sound until Lieutenant Maya Torres, Alex's second-in-command, broke the silence. "Captain," she whispered, eyes fixed on the sensor screen. "I'm detecting movement ahead. Multiple warp signatures. Vayari ships." Alex leaned over her shoulder, studying the readings. The numbers didn't lie. It wasn't just a small patrol. It was an entire battle group. His jaw tightened. "So it's true," he muttered. "They're making a move on this system." Maya's voice was filled with worry. "Sir, we're outnumbered 10-1. If they spot us, we won't stand a chance." Alex gave her a sharp, determined look. "Then we don't get spotted. Our job is to gather intel and get out. No heroics, not this time." But deep down, Alex knew things rarely went according to plan. Across the battlefield, aboard the flagship of the Vayari fleet, Commander Lyra Valan stood tall on her command deck. Her ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering, sleek and deadly, its walls glowing with soft green light. Around her, Vayari officers moved with precise efficiency, their voices low and calm, even as they prepared for battle. Lyra studied the holographic display of the system, her expression unreadable. The human forces had proven clever in the past, always appearing where least expected. She suspected they might send a scout ship to observe this operation. "Increase our perimeter scans," she ordered, her voice cool and controlled. "If humans are here, I want them found before they can escape." Kale, her loyal second-in-command, gave a respectful bow. "As you command, Commander. But I still question why the Council insists on treating this system as neutral territory. It should already belong to the Empire." Lyra's eyes flickered. "Neutrality is an illusion, Kale. Soon, no territory will be safe from this war." Her words were quiet, almost sad. Kale noticed, but said nothing. Lyra was his commander, and her thoughts were her own. Back aboard the Resolute, Alex's crew continued their silent approach. Through the viewport, enormous Veyari warships loomed like shadowy predators, their hulls glistening with faint green lights. "Recording sensor data," Maya reported. "If we can get this back to command, they'll know exactly what the enemy's planning." Alex nodded. "Good, just a little closer, and then we—" The ship's alarms blared suddenly, piercing the quiet. "Alert! Enemy scan detected," shouted the navigation officer. "They spotted us." Alex swore under his breath. "Evasive maneuvers. Maya, get us out of here." The Resolute jolted violently as it darted through the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks while green energy beams lanced past, narrowly missing them. The small human vessel was fast, but the Veyari fleet had the numbers and the firepower. A direct hit struck the rear shields. The deck shook, throwing crew members to the floor. Sparks rained down from overloaded consoles. "Shields down to 30%. Maya shouted. "We can't take another hit like that." Alex gritted his teeth. "Prepare for warp jump. Wheel." Before he could finish, a massive Veyari flagship cut off their escape path, its weapons glowing ominously. "Incoming volley!" Maya screamed. The world turned white as the ship was struck head-on. When Alex awoke, everything was silent. His head throbbed, and his vision swam. He was lying on cold metal flooring, his hands bound by glowing green cuffs that hummed with alien energy. Slowly, his senses returned. He wasn't on his ship anymore. The room around him was dimly lit, its walls curved and organic-looking, like the inside of some great living creature. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the edges. A soft, unfamiliar voice broke the silence. "You are awake." Alex turned his head sharply. Standing before him was Commander Lyra Veylan. She was tall and elegant, her emerald-scaled form illuminated by the room's greenish light. Her slit-pupilled eyes studied him intently, calculating and cold. For a moment, Alex just stared. He had seen Veyari before from a distance, through the chaos of battle, but never this close, never face to face. "So," Lyra said calmly, tilting her head, "this is the infamous human who's been causing my forces so much trouble." Alex's jaw tightened. "Name's Captain Alex Carter," he growled. "And who the hell are you supposed to be? The monster in charge of this slaughter?" Lyra's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Commander Lyra Veylan, and you are my prisoner." Alex spat on the floor. "Go ahead, kill me. That's what you people do, isn't it?" Lyra's eyes narrowed. She stepped closer, her presence both commanding and strangely curious. "If I wanted you dead, Captain, you would already be dead." Alex glared up at her, confused by her tone. "Then why am I still breathing?" Lyra crouched so their eyes were level. "Because I want to understand you," she said softly. "Humans fight with such passion. I need to know why." On the other side of the room, Kale stood in the shadows, watching with suspicion. He didn't trust this human, not for a second. But Lyra felt something she couldn't explain. As Alex struggled against his bonds, meeting her gaze with defiance, she felt the first flicker of something dangerous, something forbidden. She didn't know it yet, but this prisoner would change everything: the war, her loyalty, and perhaps even her heart. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the glowing restraints that bound Captain Alex Carter's wrists and ankles. His breath came in sharp, controlled bursts as he glared at Commander Lyra Vadan, refusing to show fear. The alien commander stood calmly, her emerald-scaled form shimmering under the dim light. To Alex, she was the embodiment of everything he hated. She wore the uniform of the enemy, sleek armor etched with symbols he couldn't read, a mark of the empire that had taken his brother's life. And yet, there was something about her presence that unsettled him in a way he couldn't explain. Lyra tilted her head slightly, studying him as if he were a puzzle. "You are different from the other humans I have encountered," she said at last, her voice smooth but cool. "Most scream or beg when they are captured. You do neither." Alex let out a short, bitter laugh. "You'll never hear me beg, alien." Lyra's eyes flickered with a strange light, curiosity, perhaps amusement. So proud, so certain. She paused, her gaze never leaving his. "That pride is why your kind is dangerous." Alex tugged against his restraints, the glowing bands burning faintly against his skin. "We're dangerous because you attacked us," he snapped. "We didn't start this war. You did, when you slaughtered civilians at Ardent Prime." Lyra's expression didn't change, but there was a slight tightening around her eyes. "Ardent Prime was Vayari territory," she said evenly. "Your ship entered without permission. My people saw it as an invasion." "It was a colony ship," Alex roared, his anger boiling over. "Families, children, they weren't soldiers. You murdered them." For the first time, Lyra looked away, her claws curling slightly against her thigh. Her voice, when it came, was quieter. "Perhaps it was a mistake." Alex blinked, stunned. He hadn't expected her to admit anything even close to regret. Before he could speak, the doors slid open with a sharp hiss, and Kale, Lyra's second-in-command, entered the room. His eyes immediately locked on Alex, filled with pure contempt. "Commander," Kale said sharply, "this human is a threat. We should execute him and be done with it." Alex's lip curled. "I'm flattered you think I'm that dangerous." Kale hissed at him, baring sharp, white teeth. "Silence, beast." Lyra raised a hand, silencing them both. "No, we will not kill him, not yet." Kale stared at her, clearly shocked. "Commander, with respect, keeping him alive risks the entire fleet. His people will come for him." Lyra's voice was calm but firm, carrying the weight of authority. "And if they come, we will be ready. This human has value. I will interrogate him personally." Kale's jaw clenched, but he bowed his head. "As you command." He shot Alex one last murderous glare before leaving. When the doors closed, Lyra turned back to Alex. "You see," she said softly, "even my own kind doubts me. That is why I must understand you." Alex frowned, suspicion written all over his face. "Understand me? For what? So you can figure out how to kill us better?" Lyra's lips curved into a faint, almost sad smile. "Perhaps, or perhaps to end this war before it destroys us both." Over the next several days, Lyra questioned Alex repeatedly. At first, their conversations were nothing but sharp words and defiance. She demanded to know human tactics, fleet movements, weaknesses. Alex refused to say anything, answering only with sarcasm or silence. But gradually, their exchanges began to change. Lyra started asking different questions, not about war, but about humanity itself. She wanted to know about Earth, about oceans and forests, about music and laughter. Alex was wary, but he found himself answering in small, guarded ways. He told her about rainstorms and how they smelled after the heat of summer. He described the taste of fresh bread, the sound of a guitar being played by a campfire, the sight of children playing in a sunlit park. Lyra listened intently, her expression unreadable. These were things utterly foreign to her. "Your world sounds chaotic," she said one evening, after a long silence. "It is," Alex admitted, "but it's beautiful too." For a moment, there was no war between them, just two people sharing words across an impossible gulf. One night, as Alex lay chained in his cell, Alarms suddenly blared throughout the Veyari ship. Red warning lights bathed the halls in eerie light, and the distant thrum of weapon systems powering up echoed through the walls. The door to his cell burst open. Lyra stormed in, her usually calm demeanor shaken. "Your fleet has found us," she said, her voice urgent. "They're here?" Alex asked, sitting up. "Yes," she replied, unlocking his restraints with a swift motion, "and they will destroy this ship to rescue you." Alex blinked, stunned by what she was doing. "Wait, why are you helping me?" Lyra's gaze met his, intense and conflicted. "Because I don't want more death, not tonight." Before Alex could respond, Cale appeared in the doorway, his eyes blazing with fury. "Commander," he snarled, "what are you doing with the prisoner?" Lyra stepped between them, her stance protective. "I am moving him to a secure location." Cale's voice dripped with suspicion. "Or perhaps you are betraying us." Alex realized the tension could explode into violence at any moment. "She's trying to stop this," he said quickly. "Neither of us wants more bloodshed." Cale ignored him, his claws flexing. "Commander, if you will not act, I will." Before he could strike, the ship rocked violently as human fighters began their assault. The lights flickered, and the floor lurched beneath them. Lyra grabbed Alex's arm, pulling him to his feet. "We have to move now," she ordered. For the first time, Alex didn't resist her touch. As they ran through the chaotic corridors, dodging Veyari soldiers and collapsing bulkheads, Alex glanced at her. "Why are you really doing this?" Lyra didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. "Because I don't want you to die." Alex stumbled at her words, shocked. He didn't have time to respond before they rounded a corner and faced a group of armed Veyari soldiers blocking their path. The soldiers froze when they saw their commander holding hands with a human prisoner. Confusion rippled through them, then outrage. Lyra's grip on Alex tightened. "Stay behind me," she hissed. In that moment, Alex realized the truth. She wasn't just protecting him out of duty or strategy. Something deeper was growing between them. Something forbidden, fragile, and dangerously powerful. And if anyone discovered it, they would both be destroyed. The silence after the battle was haunting. The human strike team had been forced to retreat, leaving Captain Alex Carter behind. Their rescue attempt had failed, but the Veyari flagship had taken heavy damage. Fires smoldered in several corridors, and the ship drifted through space under partial power. Alex sat in a small chamber deep within the vessel, his wrists no longer bound. For the first time since his capture, he wasn't locked in a cell. Instead, he sat across from Commander Lyra Vavan, who stood by a narrow window, staring out at the wreckage of her once proud fleet. Her normally perfect armor was scratched and scorched. A streak of dark blood marked her shoulder where a shard of metal had grazed her during the fighting. Yet she stood tall, her expression calm, her presence commanding. Alex couldn't help but admire her strength, though he'd never admit it out loud. "You could have killed me back there," Alex said finally, breaking the tense silence, "or handed me over to your soldiers. Instead, you saved me. Why?" Lyra turned to face him. For a long moment, she didn't answer. "Because," she said quietly, "this war is devouring us both. I have seen too many die. Too many young soldiers sent to fight for causes they do not understand." Alex frowned, trying to read her expression. "You sound like someone who doesn't believe in this war anymore." Her eyes glimmered in the dim light. "I believe in protecting my people," she said firmly. "But I no longer believe that endless slaughter will bring us safety." Alex leaned back, his arms crossed. "Funny. That's exactly how I feel." Their eyes met across the small space, and for the first time, Alex saw her not as a monster, not as the enemy, but as someone who had also lost everything to this conflict. Over the following days, a fragile trust began to grow between them. Lyra kept Alex hidden from the rest of her crew, telling them he was being interrogated. In reality, she brought him food, water, and even a blanket for warmth. She asked him about his world, and in return, she told him about hers. Late one night, as the ship drifted silently through space, they sat together in a storage bay, speaking in low voices. "Tell me about Earth," Lyra said softly. Alex smiled faintly. "Earth? Well, it's messy, loud, chaotic, but it's beautiful too. Oceans that stretch farther than the eye can see. Forests so thick you can get lost for days. Cities full of lights, music, laughter." Lyra tilted her head, fascinated. "Music," she repeated, tasting the unfamiliar word. "We have structured sound rituals, but I do not think it is the same." Alex chuckled. "Music isn't just structure. It's emotion. It's freedom." For a moment, Lyra looked almost wistful. "I would like to hear it someday." Their conversation drifted to quieter topics, childhood memories, family stories, small personal details neither of them had shared with anyone else. And somewhere in the middle of those late-night talks, something shifted between them. One evening, as Lyra stood to leave, Alex reached out and caught her hand without thinking. She froze, staring down at their joined hands in shock. "Lyra," Alex began, his voice rough, "you've done more for me than you should have. If your people find out, you'll be branded a traitor." Lyra's expression hardened, but her hand didn't pull away. "I am aware of the risk," she said quietly. "Then why keep doing it?" Alex asked. "Why save me at all?" For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then, very softly, she said, "Because I cannot stand to see you die. Not you." Alex's breath caught. Their eyes met, and the tension between them snapped like a wire pulled too tight. Before either of them could think, they leaned closer. Their lips met in a hesitant, forbidden kiss. It was brief, almost fragile, but it ignited something powerful in both of them. When they broke apart, Lyra stepped back, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "This is madness," she whispered. "If anyone knew—" "I know," Alex said, his voice equally strained, "but I don't care." For the first time in years, he felt alive, not as a soldier, not as a tool of war, but as a human being. The following days were filled with stolen moments. Lyra would slip away from her duties to spend a few precious minutes with Alex, sharing quiet conversations and brief touches. Sometimes, when no one was watching, they kissed again, longer, deeper, each time more desperate. But the walls around them were closing in. Cale had begun to grow suspicious. He noticed how often Lyra disappeared, how she seemed distracted during briefings. He noticed the human prisoner was never brought to public interrogations. One evening, he confronted her in the strategy chamber. "Commander," Cale said, his voice low and dangerous, "I must speak freely." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Speak." "You are hiding something," Cale accused. "Something to do with the human. You are protecting him." Lyra's claws curled slightly, but her tone remained cold. "Be careful, Cale. I will not tolerate baseless accusations." "Baseless?" Cale hissed. "I see the way you look at him. I smell it on you, the scent of hesitation, of weakness." Lyra stepped forward, towering over him. "Say another word, and I will have you removed from this ship," she warned. Cale snarled, but backed down, bowing stiffly. "As you command, Commander." But as he left the chamber, his eyes burned with suspicion and anger. Later, Lyra returned to Alex, her hands trembling. "We are running out of time," she said. "Cale is watching me. If he discovers the truth—" Alex grabbed her hands, steadying her. "Then we run," he said fiercely. "We find a way out, together." Lyra's gaze softened. "You would leave your people for me?" Alex hesitated for only a moment. "I'd leave the war for you," he said, "but not my people. I want to save them, the same way you want to save yours." Tears glimmered faintly in Lyra's eyes. "Then we must find another path, one that does not end in blood." Their foreheads touched gently, a silent vow passing between them. But neither of them saw the small hidden sensor in the corner of the room. its tiny red light blinking. Kale had planted it hours earlier. And now, their secret was no longer theirs alone. The stars burned cold and distant above a brewing storm of war. From orbit, the neutral star system looked calm, its two barren planets circling a pale sun in silent harmony. But in the darkness beyond, fleets gathered. Massive warships glided into formation, engines humming like a chorus of thunder. The Veyari Empire had arrived in full force, led by Commander Lyra Velan aboard her flagship. Across the void, the Earth Defense Fleet was assembling under the command of Admiral Hayes, humanity's most battle-hardened leader. This was no border skirmish, no raid or small clash. This was the decisive battle that would determine the fate of two civilizations. Deep inside the Veyari flagship, Captain Alex Carter stood beside Lyra in the dim glow of the strategy chamber. The holographic display between them showed a map of the system, with hundreds of red and blue icons representing ships preparing to kill each other. Alex stared at the display, his chest tight. "That's a slaughter waiting to happen," he said quietly. "If this fight happens, billions will die." Lyra nodded grimly. "It will not be a battle, it will be annihilation. The humans believe the Veyari are coming to destroy them. The Veyari believe the humans will never stop expanding. Fear drives both sides." Her hand hovered over the holographic map, almost as if she wanted to erase it. "I once believed we were the superior species," she admitted softly. "Now I see we are both prisoners of our hatred." Alex turned to face her, determination flashing in his eyes. "Then we have to stop this. Together." Lyra hesitated. "Kale already suspects us. If he discovers what we are planning, he will execute me. And you. If we do nothing," Alex countered, "everyone dies. I'd rather die trying to stop this than live knowing I let it happen." Lyra studied him for a long, silent moment. Then she nodded. "Very well, we will act." Their plan was desperate but simple. Disable both fleets before the battle began, forcing the Galactic Council to intervene. Lyra would secretly transmit false orders to her fleet, scattering them into disarray. At the same time, Alex would hack into the human fleet's comm systems and feed them false sensor readings, convincing them the Veyari were retreating. If both sides were confused long enough, there would be a chance to open negotiations instead of firing weapons. It was risky. If either side discovered the deception, they would be branded traitors. And Kale's hidden sensor had already recorded their forbidden kiss days earlier, giving him the perfect weapon to destroy them. As the fleets drew closer, the Veyari flagship thrummed with tension. Soldiers hurried through the corridors, unaware that their commander was about to sabotage their mission. Kale, however, was not fooled. He stood in the shadows of the strategy chamber doorway, his claws flexing, as he listened to Lyra issue coded orders to her sub-commanders. The words were subtle, almost unnoticeable to anyone without deep military knowledge, but Kale understood. His heart pounded with rage. "So it's true?" he hissed to himself. "She betrays us? For him." His tail lashed behind him. This will not stand. The void of space burned with war. Flashes of red and blue lit up the darkness as human battleships and Veyari cruisers clashed in a storm of destruction. The battlefield was a graveyard forming in real time, with shattered hulls drifting like broken bones. Alex stood on the Veyari flagship's bridge, fists clenched, his face illuminated by the furious glow of distant explosions. Every blast was a scream, every fireball a life lost. "We're running out of time," he said, his voice tight with desperation. Beside him, Lyra Velan worked furiously at her console, trying to override both fleets' comm systems. Her claws tapped commands in a blur, her usually steady hands trembling. "I'm sending emergency codes," she hissed. "If they will just listen." The ship rocked violently as a near mist rattled its shields. A young Veyari officer shouted from across the bridge, "Commander, the humans are targeting our engines. We cannot withstand this much longer." Lyra's heart pounded in her chest, the weight of two civilizations pressed down on her shoulders. "Redirect power to forward shields," she ordered sharply. "And keep firing. But aim to disable, not destroy." The officer blinked in shock. "Commander, are you serious?" In this battle, mercy will get us killed. Do as I command, Lyra snapped. The officer obeyed reluctantly, but the confusion on the crew's faces was clear. They didn't understand why their leader was holding back. Alex touched Lyra's arm gently. It's not working, he whispered. Every second we delay, more people die. There has to be another way. Before Lyra could respond, the bridge doors burst open. Cale, battered but alive, stormed in with several heavily armed soldiers at his back. His eyes blazed with hatred and betrayal. Arrest them, he roared, pointing a clawed finger at Lyra and Alex. End this treachery now. The soldiers aimed their rifles, but Lyra stepped forward, defiant. Cale, stop this madness. Look outside. You see what this war has done. Cale's voice was like a blade. I see our enemies dying, as they should, and I see you, standing beside one of them. He gestured at Alex with utter disgust. You have corrupted yourself, Commander. You've let this creature twist your mind. You are no longer fit to lead. Alex's temper flared. You think this is leadership, he shouted. Sending thousands to die for pride and fear. You call that strength? Cale snarled and lunged, his claws slashing toward Alex. Lyra fired a stun blast, but Cale was too fast. He swiped the weapon from her hand and slammed her against a console. Sparks burst around them as circuits fried. Lyra, Alex shouted. He tackled Cale, the two men crashing to the deck in a violent struggle. Cale's strength was overwhelming. His claws tore through Alex's armor, leaving deep gashes in his side. Pain seared through Alex's body, but he fought on, fueled by sheer determination. I won't let you win, he gasped, driving his fist into Cale's jaw. Cale roared and hurled Alex across the deck like a ragdoll. You are nothing, he spat. A weak, soft animal pretending to be a warrior. Lyra, dazed but conscious, staggered to her feet. She grabbed a fallen blade, a traditional Veyari weapon, and faced Cale. No, she said, her voice low and trembling with emotion. He is stronger than you will ever be, Cale, because he fights for more than hatred. Cale snarled and charged. Lyra sidestepped at the last moment, slashing her blade across his chest. He stumbled, roaring in pain, and fell to one knee. Alex, bleeding but alive, rose shakily to his feet. Lyra, finish it, he said hoarsely. Lyra's hands trembled as she raised the blade. Her heart screamed in conflict. Cale had been her second in command, her friend since childhood. Please, Cale rasped, his voice breaking. Don't do this. Kill the human. End this madness. Tears welled in Lyra's eyes. You already ended it, Cale, she whispered. With a swift, merciful strike, she knocked him unconscious, refusing to kill him. His body slumped to the deck. Alarms blared across the bridge. A technician shouted, Commander, the flagship's reactors are overheating. One more direct hit, and we'll detonate. Alex's heart sank. If this ship explodes, both fleets will think it's an attack. It'll push them into a blood frenzy. Lyra's mind raced. We need to broadcast a signal powerful enough to override every ship's comms. Alex grimaced. The only way to do that is to channel it through the main reactor. The technician turned pale. That would overload it completely. It will destroy the ship. Lyra's gaze hardened. Then I will stay behind to trigger it manually. Alex grabbed her arm, his voice fierce and desperate. No, I'm not losing you. Not like this. Alex, she said softly, if we don't do this, there will be no future for either of us. He shook his head, tears threatening to spill. Then we find another way. We both go, or neither of us goes. For a moment, they just stared at each other, surrounded by the chaos of a dying ship. Finally, Lyra placed her hand against his cheek. I wish we had more time. Alex covered her hand with his own. Then let's make every second count. Together, they raced to the reactor core, fighting through smoke, fire, and collapsing corridors. Behind them, loyalists to Cale fired wildly, trying to stop them, but Alex and Lyra moved as one, covering each other, never letting go of hope. When they reached the reactor chamber, the heat was unbearable. The massive core pulsed like a living heart, dangerously unstable. Lyra connected the transmission device, her claws flying over the controls. "Signal ready," she said. "Once I activate it, there will be no turning back." Alex stepped beside her, placing his hand over hers. "We do this together." She met his gaze and nodded. Together, they pressed the final command. A blinding pulse of energy erupted from the reactor, racing through space. Every ship in both fleets froze as their systems were overridden. Then, Lyra's voice filled the void. "This war is over," she declared, her voice ringing with raw emotion. "Look at what we are doing to each other. Humans, Veari, we are more alike than we are different. If you do not stop now, there will be no victory, only ashes." Her words carried across the battlefield. On both sides, weapons slowly lowered. Captains hesitated. Officers stared at each other in stunned silence. For the first time, they listened. But inside the reactor chamber, the temperature spiked into the red. Alex realized what was happening a second too late. Lyra, the overload. The core began to rupture, molten light spilling from its cracks. "Go!" Lyra shouted. "You have to escape." Alex grabbed her wrist. "Not without you." The ship trembled violently, tearing itself apart as alarms screamed. Outside, the fleets watched in horror as the Veari flagship began to collapse. Inside, Alex and Lyra sprinted through the burning corridors as explosions ripped the ship apart behind them. They dove into an escape pod just as the flagship erupted into a massive fireball, sending shockwaves across space. The pod tumbled away, spinning through debris and silence. Alex pulled Lyra into his arms, holding her close as the world burned around them. "We made it," he whispered, though his voice shook. "We actually made it." Lyra closed her eyes, leaning against him. For now, as the wreckage drifted, both fleets stared at the smoldering ruins of the flagship. The battle had ended, not with victory, but with shock and silence. And deep in that silence, a fragile hope began to grow. The battlefield was eerily quiet. Where moments ago ships had roared and weapons had screamed, now there was only drifting wreckage and silence. The stars were hidden behind clouds of smoke and shattered metal, like a graveyard scattered across the void. In the middle of it all, a single escape pod floated aimlessly, its beacon blinking weakly. Inside, Alex Carter and Lyra Veylan clung to each other, bruised, burned, but alive. Alex's breathing was ragged as he cradled Lyra in his arms. Her normally perfect armor was cracked and blackened, her scales singed from the explosion. "Stay with me," Alex whispered, brushing a strand of her dark hair like tendrils from her face. "You can't leave me now, Lyra, not after everything." Her golden eyes fluttered open. "I am still here," she rasped, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "You humans are so dramatic." Alex laughed hoarsely, tears staining his eyes. "Says the alien who just saved the galaxy." They held each other for a long moment, the weight of what they had done sinking in. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, confusion rippled through both fleets. On the human flagship Vanguard, Admiral Hayes stared at the wreckage of the Veari flagship on the viewscreen. His crew was silent, waiting for his command. "Sir," a young officer said hesitantly, "should we continue the attack?" Hayes shook his head slowly. "No, stand down. There's been enough death today." On the Veari side, leaderless ships drifted aimlessly. Without Lyra's commands, no one dared take the initiative. Whispers spread like wildfire. The commander sacrificed herself to stop the war. For the first time, both sides hesitated instead of striking. Hours later, a rescue team located Alex and Lyra's escape pod. When the hatch opened, human soldiers and Veari warriors alike froze in stunned silence. There they were, a human captain and a Veari commander, locked in a tender embrace. Gasps echoed. A human medic stepped forward uncertainly. "Captain Carter, you're alive?" Alex helped Lyra to her feet, his arm wrapped protectively around her waist. "We're both alive," he said firmly. "And we just saved all of you. Now someone get us to a medical bay." The soldiers exchanged bewildered looks but obeyed. As they left, a low murmur spread through the crowd. Some looked at Alex and Lyra with awe, others with suspicion or even disgust. Days later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species crowded into the vast chamber, their voices a chaotic storm of anger and confusion. At the center of the hall stood a massive hologram of the destroyed Vayari flagship. "The humans planned this attack," one alien delegate shouted. "No, the Vayari did," another argued. "This is an outrage. We demand answers." The noise grew until it was deafening, until Lyra stepped forward. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Many had assumed she was dead. She walked with quiet dignity despite her injuries, Alex at her side. Together, they faced the furious council. Lyra raised her voice, her words sharp and commanding. "Enough!" The chamber fell silent. "This war was never about justice or survival," Lyra declared. "It was about fear. My people feared the humans. The humans feared us. And while we fought, we destroyed everything we claimed to protect." A counselor sneered. "And you expect us to believe you, a proven traitor?" Alex stepped forward, meeting the counselor's gaze without flinching. "Believe this," he said coldly. "The only reason you're all standing here instead of floating in the ruins of a dead galaxy is because Lyra chose peace over war." He gestured toward the chamber's central display. "Roll the transmission." A holographic recording played, Lyra's desperate plead from the flagship, broadcast seconds before it exploded. Her voice echoed through the hall. "This war is over. If you do not stop now, there will be no victory, only ashes." When the recording ended, silence blanketed the chamber. Even the most hardened warhawks could not deny what they had just heard. Then, from the shadows, a deep, commanding voice growled, "But what of this?" A new hologram appeared, Kale's recording of Alex and Lyra's forbidden kiss. Gasps erupted. Several delegates shouted in outrage. "An abomination," one bellowed. "Proof of corruption," another cried. "They cannot be trusted." The chamber descended into chaos once again. Lyra's shoulders tensed, but Alex took her hand and held it high for all to see. "This isn't corruption," he said, his voice ringing with defiance. "It's proof that even the oldest enemies can find common ground." He glanced at Lyra, his voice softening. "It's proof that love can survive, even here." Lyra squeezed his hand, her gaze unwavering. "We are not asking you to approve," she said. "Only to understand. If a human and a Vayari can stand together, then maybe there is hope for everyone." The council chamber fell silent once more. Finally, the council speaker rose, his ancient face unreadable. "This changes everything," he said slowly. "For now, hostilities will cease. The council will deliberate further before rendering judgment." He looked directly at Alex and Lyra. "But know this, your bond has shaken the very foundations of our galaxy. What comes next will not be easy." Outside the chamber, reporters and citizens from countless worlds waited. When Alex and Lyra emerged hand in hand, the crowd erupted, some cheering, others hurling insults, still others weeping openly. Their image was broadcast across the galaxy in an instant. A human and an alien, standing together against centuries of hatred. Some called them heroes. Others called them traitors. But no one could ignore them. Later, aboard a neutral station, Alex and Lyra watched the endless news feeds. The galaxy was on fire with debate, and neither of them knew what the future held. Alex slipped an arm around her shoulders. "You know," he said softly, "we might have just started a whole new war." Lyra leaned against him, her expression calm but resolute. "Then we will face it together." They shared a quiet moment, watching as their story spread to every corner of known space. "Whatever happens next," Lyra murmured, "the galaxy will never be the same again." Final shot. A wide view of the galactic map, dozens of systems blinking with uncertainty. The camera slowly zooms in on the image of Alex and Lyra holding hands. A narrator's voice speaks over the scene. In a galaxy divided by fear, two souls dare to choose love. But their fight is far from over. The screen fades to black, and the words appear in bold letters.